And welcome to Chalk Talk. I am your host, Kim Davis. Thank you for tuning in each and every week at 10 o'clock on Tuesday mornings. I am super excited about today's show because our special guest today is a perfect when the crowd stops cheering kind of segment. And he is a person that I met back in college when he was tearing things up at the University of Houston. As a safety, he went on to play in the National Football League with the Denver Broncos. He competed as a wrestler. He's got a long history of stuff he's done, but now what he's doing, I'll let him tell you, but he would probably say is really the most important work of his career. He's talking about mental health. He's talking about depression. He's talking about sleep apnea in a way that can hopefully educate people and keep them from having some of the pitfalls he's had. So I want to bring to the show and thank him for coming on such short notice. My old friend, Randy Thornton. Hello, Randy. Welcome to Chalk Talk.
Hey, Kim, and thank you for having me. And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year and happy belated birthday.
Thank you. I turned 26.
Yeah. Again, right?
For the fourth time.
For the fourth time. Well, not that many times, but listen, you still look like you could play. I know that when we chatted and just what I read, your journey says something very different. And so I'm glad that you're here because there's so much we could talk about. As I said when I brought you in, what you're doing now, you probably would say is the most important work of your career. Tell me why you've taken up really this advocacy work. What made you go this route?
Well, it all started back when I broke my neck in 2010, and I just signed a big contract to go wrestle overseas in Japan. And I was in the gym working out, and a piece of equipment fell on me and broke my neck, and it ruined my career. So my career went to an end, and I was really, down, depressed. When I broke my neck, I was 280 pounds, 6% body fat. I got up to 380 pounds, fat, out of shape. I had every medical condition you can name: diabetes, mental illness, hypertension, sleep apnea. And one day I just woke up and said, I can't do this no more. And I talked to a bunch of my friends who I played with, in college and professional, and also wrestling. And I noticed that a lot of them was just dying, just a lot of them was dying in their sleep. A lot of them was dying from heart disease, mental illness. One of my friends told me that his dream was to, his wife to call the police, and he come outside with an unloaded gun so the police that can kill him, because he was just so depressed. And so I really got into it because I got tired of hearing people say, "Oh, I didn't know." I didn't know that. I didn't know sleep apnea was killing people. I don't know about a tongue. I don't know about mental illness. Something I can talk about because I seen my first psychiatrist when I was 6 years old. So I've always had a problem with mental illness. I just became the best actor in the world and knew how to hit it from the public. So when people sing Big Swoll, from The Limit, they see me smiling, laughing, But when I leave and go back to my room in the hotel, to my house, I'm crying, depressed. And this is a lot of professional athletes. This is not common. This is very, very, very common. Excuse me. It's very common with professional athletes.
Let me ask you a question, Randy. You said that you saw your first psychiatrist when you were 6.
Yeah.
Did you know what it was back then, or even when you got to college or you played in the league? Did you know you had mental illness, or what did you think it was?
Yeah, I'm putting out a children's book, in coloring called, dealing with my mental health issues, and it's called A Monster in My Head. I never forget when I was 6 years old, my mom took me to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist asked me what was wrong with me, and I told her I have a monster in my head, and I just remember my mom crying and crying and crying, and so that is the main reason why my mom got me to football, wrestling, boxing. I was always active, and it helped me out. And I didn't really know what it was, but even in high school, I knew I had problems because I've always been an introvert. I'm always by myself. I like being myself. sitting in dark rooms. And my senior year at the University of Houston, I really snapped. A lot of people, I was supposed to be a second round pick. They were projected for a second round pick. And before the season started, I went to my head coach, Jack Pardee, and I told him I was having mental issues. Instead of the University of Houston helping me, they benched me, and it made things worse. And my mental state, I remember this is something, a lot of people don't know, but, I tried to kill myself in college. I tried to commit suicide in college.
So when you went to them, and it's interesting because that was back in the late 80s, early 90s, late 80s? 89?
88, excuse me, 88.
88. And it's the thing that's really disturbing about that is that now in 2021, people are just now starting to kind of talk about it, but I don't know how really accepted it is yet. So imagine back in 89.
It's taboo. And number one, when I went to my coach, he didn't know, he thought I was on steroids or something. And I kept telling him, I said, Coach, I'm crying. I'm sitting in dark rooms. I don't know what's wrong with me. And like I said, for many, many years, I hated the University of Houston because I was a 20-year-old kid that just wanted help. And by them benching me, it made it worse. It made it real bad. I remember one day at football practice, me and I got into a fight with my coach. I lost it. And I didn't lose it because I was arrogant and mean. I was having mental issues, and people always ask me to this day, how can I talk about it? Well, people think I'm crazy anyway, so why not talk about it? Because, in the African American community, especially with athletes, it's taboo to talk about mental illness.
What did you do? How did you so you kind of snapped, that happened. I do remember that your senior year, they benched you. How did you end up with the Broncos, and what was that experience like?
Well, when I went to the NFL, they moved me to, from safety to linebacker, and I went as a free agent. I didn't, everybody said, we're going to draft you second round. The Raiders promised me they was going to take me in the second round. And so when the draft came, after the combine, I'm sitting at home and no phone call. So after the draft, my phone started ringing off the hook. Every team wanted to sign me. So I went with Denver Broncos because of Simon Fletcher, who was a teammate of mine at U of H. And Mike Nolan, who's a very famous coach now and defensive coordinator, his very first job was to teach me how to play linebacker. His very first job. And so we on the field, and he's teaching me how to move to the side and how to take on blocks. And I got frustrated on some things. And I'll never forget, he said, Randy, can I show you something? I said, yeah. And you got to remember, I'm a very competitive person. I have a 5-year lead. So he brought me to the NFL war room, Denver Bronco war room, where everybody's name and, information. He said, I want you to read your name. And I looked up on that board, I said, Randy Thornton. Big, fast, aggressive, love to hit. And I got to that last word. Uncoachable. Jack Pardee caught every NFL team and told me that I was uncoachable, that I was a good athlete, but I was too hard to coach. And he cost me and my family millions of dollars because of that.
Wow. So I think it's something, Randy, that people who didn't see you play in college should know. When I saw you play, you, of course, were a safety. And when people hear you say they switched me to linebacker, you were 6'4", at 230-ish back then, if I remember about right?
I was 6'4", 230, and I went to the Broncos. I grew an inch. So I grew an inch, and I came 6'2". I went up to 280 pounds in weight.
Wow. So they saw you and thought, on this frame, you could be a linebacker. But I think that was one of the things that was so amazing about watching you play in college, because safeties aren't really that size. But you played the position, and you were All-America at that position, if I remember correctly. Is that right? Yeah.
And I mean, I was pretty good. But, I tell people all the time, my NFL career was a curse.
Really? Why do you say that?
I stopped loving football.
Mm.
I stopped loving the game. It was more of a business. And by me gaining all that weight, my first year, I broke my hand.
Mm-hmm.
My second year, I tore my ACL real bad. We was playing Monday Night Football against San Francisco, and it was the first game of the season. I made the team, and I went down on a punt and jumped over a pile. And that was my career.
Wow. So you went from that, and I want to go back to something that I think is important that people understand. When you talked about having, hey, coach, I'm having I don't know what's wrong with me. They then told the teams in the league that you weren't coachable, which is probably why you dropped off the draft board.
Yes. Yeah.
So how did you go from from the NFL to wrestling?
Well, I got traded to the New York Giants under Plan B, and I asked to be released. I asked them to release me because my knees were so bad. And there was a guy who coached at TSU. You probably remember Big Cat Ernie Ladd.
Yeah, Ernie Ladd, who was a wrestler. Yeah.
We was at Frenchie's, and they had Frenchie's Chicken near the university. And this big old red guy walked in. Boy, you pretty. You a pretty boy. Boy, you pretty. And I said, how you doing, Mr. Ladd? Because I was one of his fans. He said, you ever thought about getting into wrestling? I said, yeah, it's a dream of mine. So he gave me a phone number. He said, when your career is over, call this person. So, but I went over, I went to play in Canada, and I played in the World League. And got to having knee injuries, blowing my knee out. So,
do you think it's because you picked up you started carrying more weight to play linebacker?
Yeah. My body wasn't used to carrying that weight. Because I've had 6 ACLs and 18 scopes on my knee.
Wow.
So,
6 ACLs and 18 scopes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. My knees are tore up. So I called the number he gave me, and guy by the name of Brad Riggins, and Brad Riggins trained the Road Warriors. He trained Brock Lesnar, Kurt Hennig, Mr. Perfect, Big Van Vader, the Steiner brothers. I went to the same school, with these guys, and that's how I got into wrestling, and I got out of wrestling because I was in Japan wrestling, and I got a phone call saying, hey, you just got drafted in the World League. You still want to play? I'm like, yeah, but I'm 320 pounds, and it's like, oh, we're going to move you to defensive end. And so I was in Japan wrestling, got a phone call, I got drafted, and I went and played for the Sacramento Gold Miners and Sacramento Surge. It was a new expansion team. First was the World League, then we joined the Canadian League. So that's how I got in. But wrestling wasn't good either because being a professional wrestler, especially when I got into it, it was very racist. It was a very racist industry.
So tell me about, what year was that, Randy?
94?
94, okay. 95. So 94, you're getting into wrestling. You got up to 320 pounds?
Well, I worked with New Japan in 1991.
Okay.
And I was working overseas wrestling in 1991 this in the off season. And so I worked for a company called New Japan, and I went over there and did some training, and I just got yoked. That's how I got the name Swoll. I just got swollen, and it was a crazy thing. I was all natural. I've always been strong. I've always been big. Lifting weights, just strength and stuff that just came natural to me. It was so. But but like my wrestling career, it was a very racist industry. When I got into it, I don't even watch it no more.
So you went into wrestling. They call you Big Swoll, and then at some point you became a part of No Limit.
Yeah, Master P, No Limit Records.
Okay.
In 1997, I joined them. Excuse me. For those that don't know, and that, Percy went to school with us at U of H, University of Houston. So we was always, friends. And one day he called and told me, hey, man, I need a trainer and somebody to be my bodyguard. Would you do both? And I was like, sure. And I joined No Limit. I just kept the name Big Swoll. because I've been calling myself that anyway. And Randy Thornton was a little well known, but Big Swoll went all over the world. I mean,
Okay.
because everybody knows me as the Big Swoll and Nolan the Soldier, and it was a great experience. And I thank him for it. For allowing me to, because I've lived places. I lived in Hollywood. I lived in Mansion. I've driven every kind of car you can name. I had it all, but the only thing I didn't have was peace.
Wow.
And that lifestyle just wasn't made for me.
So let's talk about, fast forward to kind of where you are today. You talk about not having peace, and when you and I talk, you talk a lot about your family and your wife and her support and what all of this means to you. How did you get from those places of not having peace, all of the injuries, all of the turmoil that comes with that lifestyle, to the place where you're now you're writing children's books and you're talking about mental health and sleep apnea and wanting to educate athletes?
Well, I learned in a very early stage of my career that football wasn't gonna last forever. So I had to find something to replace it, because getting into wrestling, it gives me goosebumps to walk into an arena and thousands of people chanting your name. They ain't cheering the Denver Broncos or the University of Houston. They're cheering for Big Swoll.
Right.
It's the best feeling in the world. So when I left sports, I had to find something that replaced that, and I found that in weightlifting. And I dedicated I used to work out 4 or 5 hours a day, and I just got just so big and bigger. And my goal was to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and get stronger. And that was my oasis. And that was, going to the gym was my heaven. It was my therapy. And but also I had horses. I got dogs. My whole family, we ride horses. We all have dogs. So I had different little hobbies. But once I broke my neck, I started spiraling backwards. And so then I started learning more about. This is an interesting story.
All right.
I was working for the FBI doing the motivational speaking, anti-drug and alcohol program, the Southeast Division, and they would send me all over the United States to do anti-drug programs at schools. So I go to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I go to this room, my room, and I have the old VHS,
Right,
the hotel. Right. So I go in there, and there's a VHS tape in there. Hey, I'm thinking it's a porno movie. I don't know why. Hey, somebody left this in the tape, so hey, I guess I'm gonna watch it. So I put my bags down, got myself ready, and I punched in the tape. And the tape changed my life. It was Terry Bradshaw.
Huh. And
Terry Bradshaw would talk about how he fought his mental illness when he was playing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. How he was an introvert. He didn't want to do interviews, and everybody talking about how shy he was. Terry Bradshaw is the person that taught me how to mental illness. And it wasn't for that tape, I don't know where I'd be, because I did my schools, mm-hmm. and I came back home, and the first place I went was in a psychiatrist. So Terry Bradshaw saved my life, seriously. He just don't know it.
He doesn't know it. Wow.
One day I'd like for him to, I want to say thank you to him, because he really did. He saved me. That tape saved my life.
I'm talking to Randy Thornton. You may know him as Big Swoll, and he's just kind of talking about the journey and where he is now, and this issue of mental health, which is very real, but also, unfortunately, Randy, is still kind of taboo to some people, like especially in professional athletics. The thought about it is like, we saw it a little bit last summer with Naomi Osaka, the tennis player, and there were some who said, oh, well, how can she do these things in terms of sponsorships and commercials but feel this way? But when you look back, she had talked about feeling that way for over a period of time,
Right.
right? And so it's not so easy to understand for people who don't suffer from it. What do you want people to know about mental illness, and what are you encouraging athletes to do?
I'm encouraging them to get help. It's okay. It's okay to cry inside. You know, it's okay. You got to remember, when you play football, you're playing a combat sport. You know, you're basically going to war, battle. You're preparing yourself mentally, you know, and physically. And sometimes when players retire, they just don't know how to replace it. But look at a guy in Minnesota, the football player in Minnesota a couple of weeks ago. He was fighting mental illness and he locked himself in his house. You know, this is something that's not, you look at the best football players like, you know, Lawrence Taylor, mental issues. You know, the guy who committed suicide for San Diego Chargers. I can't think of his name. The Samoan guy. You know,
right.
Junior Seau.
Yeah, linebacker.
I know a lot. Let me tell you something. I know a lot of football players, a lot that's suffering from mental illness. But one thing, when you talk about mental illness, you also got to talk about sleep disorder, because you got to remember, when a person is suffering from mental illness, they don't sleep. You know, they're up all day. You know, so when you talk about mental illness, you have to talk about sleep apnea. You have to talk about sleep disorder, because when you're depressed, you know, I remember when I went to the doctor, and I was on 20 medications, and I would sleep 18 hours a day. 18 hours a day, just sleep. I get up, eat, use the bathroom, take a shower, and go back to sleep. And for many years, that was my life. And, you know, one day I looked at my wife, I was like, I'm dying. You know, I'm killing myself. And then I had a tragic, I got in shape, went back into the gym, got back to Big Swoll.
Because the gym has always been kind of your place to kind of recharge, right?
Yeah, always. Yeah. It's always. And I remember this one day I'm in there, this is 3 years ago. I'm benching 500, struggling 800. I'm going, a great workout. I'm having a great day. And I go to my farm. I have farm. I go to the farm and kept having heartburn, you know? And I kept buying thumbs, eating thumbs, and like, something not right, you know, something wrong. Well, I live in New Orleans, but my farm is in Hammond. So I used to go to the farm by myself, you know, with the horses and stuff, and, you know, chill out there for a weekend. So it was a Friday night, and I came home. My wife's like, "What are you doing home?" I'm like, "Babe, I don't feel good. You know, something not right." So it was like around 11 o'clock at night, we trying to sleep, and it hit me. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't walk. You know, I had to crawl up the stairs. I said, "Babe," I said, don't get excited. Don't get nervous. I'm having a heart attack." Well, you can't tell no woman. She jumped up.
Don't get excited. Yeah, right.
Oh my God. So, you know, the ambulance came and got me. I went to the hospital. They thought it was anxiety. So I come back home, and I have another heart attack. Another one. So I had 2 heart attacks in 24 hours. And the second one, they kept me in the hospital for 45 days. They're like, "You're not going home." So they kept me for 45 days, and I had open heart surgery. And so...
and how long ago was this?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. So this is during COVID.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I went in the hospital on the first day of COVID. My wife, I was in the hospital about to get ready for open heart surgery. My wife told me, "I'm going to check on our daughter. I'm going to check on the dogs. I'll be back." So she calls me at 8 o'clock at night crying. I said, "What's wrong?" She said, "I can't get in." I said, "Why?" She said, "Lockdown."
Lockdown, yeah.
I didn't see my family for 45 days.
Wow.
And I'm going to tell you something. This is, I don't mean, some of the stuff makes me just emotional, you know?
Yeah, understandably.
I remember I was in the hospital. I dropped down to 160 pounds. I got so skinny. And I mean, I was so frail. I couldn't walk. I couldn't clean myself. I couldn't feed myself. And I'll forget, this one day I just started crying, you know, and I'm sitting up, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm crying, crying, crying. And they had this little nurse, she came in and she said, Swoll, why are you crying? And I told her, I said, I made peace with God, I'm ready to die. She said, what? I said, I made peace. I'm ready to die. I can't live like this. She said, Mr. Swoll, I make you a promise. I said, what? She said, I won't let you die if you stop saying you die. And you got to remember, I'm Big Swoll.
Right.
And with my little voice, you promise? Yeah, Big Swoll, I ain't gonna let you die. You promise, you know, like I was 2 years old. You promise? You promise? She said, Mr. Swoll, I ain't gonna let you die. And that young lady, you know, it made things better, you know, and it took me a long time to start walking, you know. My family used to roll me around in a wheelchair, and I'd be bent over like this, you know, and I'm so skinny. And I went to the doctor yesterday to see the heart, because I'm on the heart transplant team. I'm waiting for the heart, and so I went to meet, you know, somebody. I haven't seen him in 6-7 months, and so I go back yesterday, and nurses were crying
because of how you look now and how you're able to get around.
Yeah, I'm like, what's wrong? Just like, look at you, look at your face, look how much weight you gained. You're walking. And I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm walking, I'm feeding myself, I'm cleaning myself, taking my own showers. And the lady said, the last time we seen you, you look like you were around 9 years old. You bent over in the wheelchair, your daughter was pushing. You know, people, you know, this is something that I want, you know, being Big Swoll is cool, playing NFL is cool, you know, but life is much better, you know, living. And so I made a promise with God. I said, God, if you give me another chance, I will become your servant, you know, and I will tell people about, you know, how you blessed me, you know, what you did for me. My queen, you know, I know, like, you know, we know a lot of football players who, when their career's over, the women take their money, you know, and child support, you know, and all kind of stuff. It's very rare, especially being an athlete, you know, have a woman that has your back, you know, and my queen never left me. Never. I remember I was on so much drugs that I only had 9 teeth in my mouth, and I remember from the medication. And I remember one day she kissed me, and I was like, "Girl, you're so nasty." And she said, "I will kiss you. You had no teeth in your mouth." She said, "I love you." You know, my queen worked 2-3 jobs to make sure the bills were paid. You know, I mean, she, you know, I mean, I'll never forget. You know, and this is very important. I hope athletes, especially young athletes, understand. You know, if you want to be successful in life, you got to have a strong support system. You know. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and my queen, you know, we fish together, we ride horses together, we cried together. We baked caviar together, we baked bologna together. And I'm still here because, you know, of my family, you know.
Tell me your wife's name.
Desiree Gray.
Desiree.
Yes,
and you guys have been married how long?
28 years.
Wow. 28 years. That's
and,
congratulations.
You know, the funny part, everybody always say, somebody tamed you? Well, for people that don't know, I was pretty wild in my younger days. You know, this smile got me in a lot of trouble when I was younger. It really did.
Well, you made a great choice when you picked her. You called her your queen, because the fact that she has been with you through all of this, and you're able to smile on this side of it, I think is amazing. I'm talking with Randy Thornton, also known as Big Swoll. I knew you more as Randy Thornton, right? Because I didn't know you in the wrestling world. Right. But I have seen that Big Swoll is how people connect with you. Yeah. Tell me about the sleep apnea piece, because I I think the thought is the general consensus is that people who are overweight have sleep apnea, but you said it's a lot of
Yeah.
healthy athletes who have sleep apnea, and maybe they don't know it.
Well, a lot of NFL players, college football players, bodybuilders, and powerlifters have sleep apnea. What happens is like Reggie White, Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
Reggie White died of sleep apnea with a sleep apnea machine next to his bed unused, which I just found crazy. What happens is that when you become an athlete, we train, get our shoulders big and our neck big. And what happens, like I used to have a 21-inch neck, now it's a 17. But my neck was so big that it was collapsing my airway. That's why I wore the shirt. So when you have, we've been around football players and athletes that snore and they gasp for air all the time. What happens is when they're sleeping, using this as a throat, their airway's being blocked by all the muscles. So that's why so many, professional athletes, die in their sleep or die from heart attacks, because what's happening is when you lay back, a lot of us have what we call tethered tongue.
Mm-hmm.
And tethered tongue is when the tongue gets fat and lazy. We call it a lisp,
Right.
tie tongue. And what happens is when you sleep, the tongue rolls into the back of your throat, and that's what causes the snoring, and it causes you to gasping for air because your brain's not getting air, and you're waking up, And a lot of professional athletes have it, CrossFit athletes, and a lot of women, there's women that have sleep apnea, but they refuse to get the sleep apnea machine because they think it's gonna make them look unsexy. When they put the mask on, or my husband or my boyfriend it doesn't look sexy, but being unsexy and being alive is more than being, sexy and dead, any day. But, I try to tell athletes, one of my friends, a lot of people think this is something that's false. You could be in the best shape of your life and still have sleep apnea. Everybody thinks it's somebody who's fat, overweight. No, that's not true. A lot of people are born with obstructive airway, which means that their airways are small. And you remember back in the day, a lot of kids were dying, infants, in crib. It was called crib death. Well, what it was is tethered tongue. What was happening was the parents were putting the kids down on their back while they were sleeping, and by them being newborn, the tongue wasn't strong enough, and the tongue was rolling the back of their throat and killing them.
Wow. So you are, which I think is fascinating because I didn't know that sleep apnea, that's what caused it, and that a lot of athletes, people who are really, really fit, suffer from it. Do you think that people who suffer from it, in particular athletes, don't know that that's what it is?
Well, number one, this is something that I want to share with you, the public, is that they don't know because they don't see themselves sleep.
Yeah.
You don't know you have sleep apnea because you don't hear it. But I tell people, so I did an NFL program one day, and then it was like 200 retired NFL players. And I asked them, I said, I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to your wives or your children. I said, if your father or husband snores, gasps for air, or stop breathing, when he's sleeping, stand up. And every woman in that crowd stood up. And I'll tell them, he has sleep apnea. You got sleep apnea. And the guys are saying, I didn't know I had sleep apnea, because you don't hear yourself sleep. Especially, come on, we've been around people, especially me, like around, on a plane, on a bus, and they always have that big person, and everybody's laughing.
Yeah.
Everybody's laughing at him. Well, it's not funny, because what's happening is his tongue is blocking his airway. And that's why people snore so loud, because the tongue is doing this. So and people think, I had somebody tell me, "What? Are you a doctor or something?" I'm like, "No, I'm not a read. I'm not a researcher."
Right. Yeah.
So but there's I want people to understand that Shaquille O'Neal, he has sleep apnea. Lady Gaga has sleep apnea. Madonna, sleep apnea has no color, no gender. you know, no status. It's affecting millions of people all over the world. Not just here.
Sleep apnea. So that's one of the causes that you
Mhm.
are trying to make sure that people understand.
Mhm.
Obviously, to have conversations about mental health,
Mhm.
and you're starting with the children's book
Yeah,
because I guess it's better if you get people to understand it at a young age, and you don't
yeah.
have to try to convince grown people to
Mhm.
deal with it.
Well, right now, the reason why we're doing the children's book because right now, we had a little girl in New Orleans 2 weeks ago, 9 years old, killed herself in the
Mm,
bathroom because she was being bullied.
wow.
So right now, mental health between the age of 6 and 18 is at an all-time high, 60%, increase in mental health issues. And I just remember, because a lot of people don't know, I went to elementary school in Houston, Texas. My mom, went to nursing school out there. I never forget, I got bused to this white school, and we had career day. And career day back then, you come dressed as what you want to be. And I told my teacher I wanted to be a pro football player and a pro wrestler, and everybody laughed at me. you know.
Mm.
And there's a picture of me, that I look at all the time, and I'm standing in the middle of the ring in Osaka Castle, and I'm looking up in the sky like that. And everybody said, "What are you thinking about?" I'm thinking about the sixth grade when they
Wow.
told me I couldn't do this, you know. And mental health is so, we walk around with these people, that's tattooing their bodies,
Mm-hmm.
tattooing and putting all these stuff, all these tattoos on their face, and all, you know, that's a mental illness because that's someone's not happy with themselves. They're trying to alter their looks. That's an illness. I think it's called self-imaging illness,
Mm.
where you're trying to alter your looks. You know, and I got friends all the time that say, "Oh, I can't I can't keep a man." Well, it's hard to love a person who don't love themselves. You know, I can't love you if you don't love you. You know,
Yeah.
I can
Well, that's
tell
true.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could tell. I wrote a book, another book that's being published called "The Secret of Safer Me." It's a woman empowerment book, and it's a book about a girl who stopped loving herself, and she meets this man that loves her for who she is. He doesn't want her to lose no weight. He doesn't want her to cut her hair. He loves you, and but this, it comes back to love. You know, I mean, my wife. I asked her one day, "Hey, do I have sleep apnea?" Yes, you do. You got to be. But I'm better. I'm much better, especially since I lost the muscles in my neck. And I just want people to understand. I keep bouncing around, but that's where my brain works. You
Mm-hmm.
tell me topic, I'm fine. It's like I was telling you about my concussions. I've had so many concussions. I still remember, playing for the University of Houston. We playing Arkansas, and I made a real hard hit. In the very next play, the running back ran right by me. And I remember my coach say, "But Randy, why you make the tackle?" I said, "I didn't see him." He was like, "What? Didn't see him?" Because see, back in the day, you
So
didn't
you kept
complain about
playing.
concussion. You
Right.
kept
You just
playing.
kept playing. Yeah.
You know? And I told my coach, "I didn't see him." He was like, "What? I didn't see him, coach." I'm just being honest. And right now, like we talked about the other day, I try to educate, especially, boxers and anybody who had a head injury, any car accident, about white matter disease, which is something that a lot of people don't talk about because they don't know about it. And
It is. Say it again. It's white matter.
white matters brain disease.
Okay. White matter's brain disease.
And it's when you look it up, you can see you got people that have like head injuries, concussion, car wrecks. They have white spots all over their brains. Just like some get that big, some are that big. And what it is damaged tissue to the nervous system in the brain, but it's deep. A regular X-ray won't see it, but you do a deep X-ray, you can see it. Me personally, I got 48 white spots on my brain, and they're
So
getting big.
what's the is that considered a lot? I mean, what's considered? I mean, how do you gauge what's dangerous or what's a lot?
In a couple of years, I have dementia. You know, it, it's it's common. but nothing I could do about it. I
So,
mean,
Randy, are these things that are these things like the white Mathers disease, and are these things a result of just the contact you've had, like from concussions and that kind of?
Like I said, a lot of people get it even in car accidents. People that hit their heads, kids that run on the playground and hit their heads. What it is just damaged nerves, to the brain, and it's a little bit, it's a little bit, some spots could be that big, and some spots can be that big, so it just matters, if you look it up, and the sad part of that, a lot of NFL players, boxers, wrestlers don't even know what it is. I've talked to friends that they look at me like I'm crazy. White Master's disease? What is that? What are you talking about? And so I tell them, one of my friends, I told him, look, next time you go to the doctor, have them do a Zoom X-ray to your brain. And they did it, and he found out he had white Master's disease. And he's like, NFL doesn't talk about it because it's something that they don't want to talk about. College football don't talk about it. High school don't talk about it because it's a topic they just don't want to talk about.
So it should be in line with all of this concussion conversation, right? And when they talk about the problems that football players have from all the concussions, this should be a part of that conversation, what you're saying.
Yeah, but they won't talk about it. You would, right now, the people on your show are going to say, what the hell is he talking about? What is white Master's disease? And they don't know what the hell. And, I learned out because I do research. Why am I having all these headaches? Because at one point in my life, for many, many years, headaches, migraine. My headaches were so bad I used to cry, and I used to, this headaches, loud music. Oh my, oh my God, loud music and, sitting in bright rooms will just trigger something. And I want to find out what was wrong. So, a lot of people invest in money and cars. I invest into my health. I want to know, why I'm having these problems, So I found out for myself about it.
Wow. Randy Thornton, quite a journey. Tell me where you now, how you feeling now, and other than the book, kind of what else is going on with you?
I'm feeling great. God is good. The horses are still living, the dogs are living. My children, they all doing great. I had a lady tell me in an interview one day. She said, I went on your Facebook account and on all your social media, and she said, you on the heart transplant list. I said, yes, I am. She said, but every one of your pictures, you're smiling. Every picture, you're smiling. Because I'm blessed.
Yeah.
I'm still here. I have opportunity to talk to people, who want to know about mental illness. Not, I talk about mental illness. I talk about sleep apnea. I talk about brain disease. I talk about heart disease. But I also talk to young people about, hey, get some life insurance. Understand banking. If you're going to play pro football and you in college, take your own damn plans for financing, And I try to talk to the players about, money markets, CDs, mutual funds. At the University of Houston, I remember Akeem Olajuwon riding around, I remember watching Akeem Olajuwon, Clyde Drexler, Paul Malone, all these guys riding around in Mercedes. And, oh man, you want a Mercedes? Well, when you go to the program, we'll take you to get a Mercedes. Well, I thank you for that. But I really wish they'd have said, hey, I'm going to take you to see Bob the Baker. We're going to sit down and talk about mutual funds, money market, CDs.
Right.
For instance, when I broke my neck, I could have paid $100 a month for my life insurance. When the day I broke my neck, if I'd have had life insurance, I could have got paid $5 to $10 million for my injury. But nobody's never told me about life insurance until I got, my late 40s.
Wow. Well, you have a wealth of knowledge. I'm so glad that we were able to reconnect and that you agreed to come on and spend some time today. We're going to have to do it again because you got so much to talk about. We want to follow what you're doing. I want to make sure that when your children's book comes out, so we can talk about it, so that people will know about it, and whatever other projects you have. But I just want to say, keep hanging in there. It's amazing that you're still standing, well, look, but you're still smiling.
I can't hear you.
Oh,
there's something wrong with our hearing. So, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So I can barely hear you. Let me try to.
Is that better?
No, I can barely hear you, but I can hear you enough.
Well, listen, we are at the end of the interview anyway. I want to say thank you for spending all this time. We'll do it again because I want to keep up with what's happening with you. It is so awesome that you are doing well. Pray that you get a heart soon. And thank you for the work that you're doing and sharing your story to try to help others.
Well, can I say something real quick?
Absolutely.
I'm so proud of you. I'm proud of what you become. You know, I still remember in college when, you know, that beautiful smile. You know, God has blessed you, my queen. You know,
thank you.
And if nobody ever told you, you know, we love you. We love what you're doing for our world. I love what you're doing for our community. And I'm so proud to say you're my friend. You know,
yeah.
And like I said, when we hooked back up and I went on your page and I said, I know that smile. I know that is. It's cute. I know it. You know, because you always been genuine. Seriously. You know, you always been 100. You always been genuine. And I'm proud to say you're my friend, you know. And I want to say thank you very much for what you're doing. And I hope your audience, I know, may God make it grow, because what you're doing is a great thing. Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot, Randy. I'll talk to you soon. All right. That's Randy Thornton. You may also know him as Big Swoll. He is doing some great work. I appreciate him taking so much time to share his story. And I wanted to go through all the things that he has going on because it's stuff that we can learn from. And, you know, that's what we like to do on Chalk Talk. So listen, you know how we do it here. Remember, first of all, Happy New Year. But remember, make sure that you're vaccinated. Make sure that you get the booster. Make sure that you're practicing social distancing. Wash your hands. Be safe out there in these crazy times. And as always, do something kind for yourself and do something kind for somebody else. I'll see you next time.